So, I think that what David DuByne has to share with us is going to be absolutely seminal to everything that's unfolding.
So what I wanted to do is show you, this is from European Space Agency. They had this satellite called Swarm out there that was measuring the magnetic field and how much it was changing. Now, oh, here we are. So this was in 2005 here, the magnetic field, the North Pole magnetically was right here, and then in 2015 it's moved to here. They stopped giving us information in 2016. Like, what happened? Why aren't they giving us any more information on how the poles are moving? This affects the magnetosphere and affects how many cosmic rays are coming in. And what they're finding also, the decay rate is 10 times faster than normal at 5% per decade. But what if it's really 10% per decade or 20 when they stop publishing? There's a lot of people are thinking it's occurring faster than they're really telling us. And again, the link between the low cloud cover and cosmic rays is very well known. So I'm going to come on here. Now, Heinrich Svensmark, the cosmos, we saw this earlier today in this chart. Our little solar system's way down over here. This is our galaxy. And you think we're not interconnected in the galaxy somehow, too? I mean, we're connected to the sun, but our sun is connected to another star system somewhere else electromagnetically. These Birkeland currents are connecting us to something else as well. So there has to be other changes going on in different parts of our galaxy as well. Now, what happens with these low-lying clouds is they start to form in a very certain specific layer, and they're measurable, and they're always forming between 15,000 and 18,500 feet. So when jet streams are colliding together, you're going to get more what they call like rivers from the sky. And I highly encourage you to watch this free movie. It's on YouTube by Heinrich Svensmark. It's called The Cloud Mystery. It can explain everything about cosmic rays way better than I can, and it's really easy to understand. And you could see the pushback in the scientific community when he releases information. Cloud Mystery. It'll explain why these record floods are happening. Now, as our magnetosphere gets weaker, our jet streams are going to start to go out of their normal flows along with the cloud bands and the cloud patterns. Like, you juice this up and add in an extra 20% cloud cover on our planet, things are going to have to push and pull to find new ways to flow in areas. So if you get a bunching flow, is what they call it, a bunching flow, you're going to get a river from the sky because an enormous amount of new cloud here that usually would just easily roll over suddenly bunches up, and it's... Again, we know through history these galactic cosmic rays have an influence on what they call the Inter Tropical Convergence Zone, and this affects the monsoon through India, different parts of Southeast Asia, and ultimately around the equator. And it's mappable. They already know what's going to happen, and this is the whole thing I go back at. The food shortages are based on this. So you can see where it was drier in the Little Ice Age, or Maunder Minimum, and where it was wetter. But this is the flow change that they're expecting. That is a huge difference where the moisture is going to flow on our planet. And again, then they're trying to bend this to make it do different things as well, using ionospheric heaters. They're trying to bend what's already bending in a natural cycle to make it move faster. And they, like I say, they keep piggybacking on every natural cycle that's occurring right now. So what they're expecting with this particular one, we're going to get into the blue here. We're going to bend south, and other areas are going to start drying out. Now, the jet streams are also another indicator that something's very wrong with the magnetic field on our planet, and this grand solar minimum, it should be a U shape, and I'll come to this next one here. It should be something like this, is a U, and the media is already out there explaining to you, oh, the polar vortex, the jet streams can bring extreme cold because of global warming. So human-caused global warming is causing record cold. Okay. They already have a ready-made excuse, and you can see the jet streams should look like this. They should undulate in, a U shape or something like this. But in reality, they're north-south right now. And I thought that is extremely scary to look at a jet stream that's going north-south, which usually should have bends in it. And this was back in, I believe, February 23rd. And I just did a video on my channel the other day, and here we are, the jet streams are nearly vertical right now, and that was just a few days ago on May 8th, that's what came out for that. So May 8th, the forecast came out, and this is what they expected on May 14th. So how did this go literally vertical? It changed from here, which was scary enough. It was sort of tilted, and there was no flow in it anymore. These are collapsing on each other, and this is why we're getting such massive mix-ups in our weather. And that's scary enough, but now they're nearly vertical, so what we're seeing in terms of cloud pattern on the planet is going to continue to change, and the more these go out of flow, food production is going to be unreliable. And it always comes back to the food. And if you can understand why this is happening, you can explain to other people what's going to happen with our food production. And here they come out. The reason I put this slide up here, somebody sent this to me. They're using the same headline, but all they're doing is changing the place. And I'll read it for you. Singapore is heating twice as fast as the rest of the world. Spain is warming faster than the rest of the Northern Hemisphere. Global warming is happening twice as fast in Alaska. Australia is heating twice as fast. Sweden's heating twice as fast. Adirondack's warming faster than global average. That's in America. Canada's warming twice as fast. Europe's warming twice as fast. The mountains are warming twice as fast. Britain's warming twice as fast. China's twice as fast. South Africa's warming twice as fast. Russia's twice as fast. And Switzerland's twice as fast. So everywhere on the planet is twice as fast as itself, so the whole planet's warming twice as fast as the rest of the planet. And this is what they routinely do. So people read this and they go, oh my God, it's warming twice as fast. And when you start debating people in the global warming, and I'm not a denier, I actually believe our climate is shifting so fast that our societies won't be able to keep up with the changes. I'm an advocate. I believe so heavily that our climate is shifting and changing so fast. It is changing too fast. We're not going to be able to keep up with the changes to grow enough food. So, right now we're getting all these record snows and record cold, and the debate is all these record rains and cold and snow is caused by evaporation from the oceans, and this is driving all the record snow and the record rain. Okay, great. This is 1998 here. This is the highest El Nino ever recorded with heated oceans in both the Atlantic and the Pacific. Highest ever recorded for readings in terms of heat, especially across this area in the Central Pacific. 1998, so keep this on. And remember, when we look at this, this is the April temperatures from University of Alabama, Huntsville. It's only 0.44 above the averages from 1979. Now, I put the circles up here to let you know that the highest I got was 0.07 degrees, and here we are, it's just barely 1/10 of a degree warmer, but they're saying that all the record snow is caused by this 1/10 of a degree warmer. We should have seen record snow and record rainfall back at this time, too, if that excuse is valid. Because they say warming oceans causes all of this new precipitation and record snow. Okay, I'll buy it, maybe. If it was true, though, at that time we should have seen the same effects, which we haven't. We didn't. We only see it now because we're entering this grand solar minimum. And when they tell, oh, it's running away, global warming, 0.44, sorry. And that's since 1979, so they have the baseline average there. Now, we know through the history where the moisture is going to shift. This is over Indonesia and Australia. They've already done reconstructions back in the Little Ice Age, and they even went back into the 1400s and back to the year 1000, and they're just showing you how it shifted and how the sun's responsible with the Inter Tropical Convergence Zone for the shifts in moisture north and south over Asia. And they know where the droughts have been because we see the droughts, and I want to bring you back right over here again. Let's take a look. 1790, where did we see that 1790 before with food price spikes? That first slide I showed you, remember it was up until 1800? Yeah, so we can see also there's a correlation. There was food disruption in growing in Europe, but there was also food disruption because of drought in Asia during the same years. So they're connected. You can get a proxy and you can figure out, okay, we know it's going to go into a drought again in this part of the world, and we know that there's going to be massive hailstorms and floods here across Europe that'll disrupt your growing. It'll get colder here too. So we can kind of just reconstruct around the planet again and again, and you just go through, it's going to get dry here, and you can forecast it out, basically. It's going to be very different this time, though. Now look at the record rains that are occurring in the Australian outback. This is the waterfalls off of Uluru, or otherwise known as Ayers Rock. That area is turning into fields out in the desert. And this is the northern outback, and as well as in the central outback, in the driest part of Australia, is now turning into a green field. This is unusual, and it's been like that. 2016 record rains, broken the next year by more rain, broken the next year by more, and now the highest rains ever recorded, 2019, that typhoon that blew through northern Queensland there. Also, California. Deborah, I'm going to bring you right in here. This was drought, and then a year later, look at the snowpack, no more drought. The problem is, all this extra water is going to create tinder and kindling for bigger fires this year. And you know what? They're going to say it's because of CO2 and you caused bigger fires. Actually, it's going to be more water growing more plants. Those plants are going to dry out, and then they're going to burn. And they're going to blame you for bigger fires because of CO2. On a natural cycle. That is a natural plant growth cycle. Take a look at the floods over in the USA. We lost an enormous amount of our stored wheat and corn this year. We lost about 30% of all grains stored in America got washed downstream during this event. Not really making the news too much. But look at the size of this. This is back in March 16th of 2019. This is what it normally looks like in the river systems through Missouri and Nebraska. But look how much it turned into an inland delta after the one flood event. Biggest floods ever recorded in American history, ever, hands down, never anything close. Our biggest river has been in the flood stage for the most days ever recorded, and we lost an enormous amount of the grain crop in the United States stored. I mean, all the bins were busting. We lost 30% at the minimum of all stored grain in America. This is what the fields currently look like. How long is it going to take to refurbish that before you can plant there again? Before you remove the debris? And forget the debris. What about all the pesticides, herbicides, fungicides, Roundup Ready, all that stuff that's in the soil that's going to damage or prevent new plant growth? What about the petrochemicals? What about the diesel? All that stuff's in the water, in the soils now, in our prime farm fields. We're not going to be able to grow. They're having a very difficult time even getting anything in the fields. This area, they're talking about 4 million acres going offline this year. They won't be able to plant due to flooding. 4 million acres. That's a lot for a wheat and corn grow belt. But you can see the rivers again, how much they swelled during these floods. I mean, that's a significant amount. And again, when you go around the world, you start to see these massive floods. Iran, all-time record, biggest floods ever recorded. Now here's where it gets real interesting. Iran, Afghanistan, Pakistan, etc., the Arab traders that used to trade on the Silk Road never talked about these big floods. They never experienced anything. So we're going back thousands of years in time where something has never been recorded in this region that's occurring right now. The Arab traders would have written extensively on that, mass floods, if they had occurred. It would have disrupted everything. But they didn't, and it's never been recorded at this level before the amount of floods. Some areas have dried out where there's now grass growing in some of these peripheral areas, and then the locust swarms are biblical. I mean, biblical. I encourage you to look up locust swarms across the Middle East right now. And then you start to look at the periphery countries too, like Afghanistan. Okay, here's the floods in the desert this river hadn't flowed in 2,000 years. And here we are, this is the flood. It's not a trickle. This is where we're going with the size of the floods across the planet. These cities were abandoned thousands of years ago because they ran out of water. And here we are, the water's coming back to the same settlements and temples and that we've seen in history. Now again, Afghanistan, Pakistan experiencing record floods, Iran, sure. But I want to draw your attention down here to Oman and Yemen, Saudi Arabia. If I say to you, Saudi Arabia, cold or warm or dry? Not really. It's a verdant field now from all the record rainfall. It's turning into a grassland across Saudi Arabia. Camels are in a year's worth of rain in Oman, and then 3 typhoons are now creating lakes in Yemen and Oman in some of the driest places in the world. That's where the food's going to come from in the future. They already know it. Atacama Desert, the driest desert in the world, 2nd year for the flower bloom up there. What's happening with the rainfall patterns globally? Now, this is the most interesting one, and it dovetails in with David's research earlier. Now, these X's are increased rainfall in different patterns thousands of years ago. This are the Chinese investments. The map he showed me today with the integration of the militaries, they're going to try to control these areas. So the Chinese have been there for a decade and a half, but how do they know that these areas would become wetter? Well, they could have looked at the reconstructions, but how would they have known these patterns would start unfolding at the moment? So what I did is I kind of overlaid this in sort of a see-through format. So the last map that I showed you is this Chinese investment map. The area here with the crosses on it is where they're expecting now significant increases in rainfall. Now, how did they know that? How did they know that? And here we are. When we overlay on the map, you can start to see where the investments are overlaying on the rainfall patterns. Wherever you see a dot is where the Chinese are in there, right where these lakes are going to form. Why are they in the exact same spots where all the rain is going to start? All these heavier precipitation areas that will turn into lakes, why are the Chinese all along the riverbeds and everything right up in here? They know the cycle. If the food growing goes offline in China, they find a new food growing area, one that was previously just dust. They gave them thousands and thousands of miles of free land for the investment. And then I want to bring you up here too, because this is the most important thing. These are called the African megalakes in the mid-Holocene. About 6,000 to 7,000 years ago, they had these huge lakes, and it was very green across northern Africa, the Sahel. Desert now, but verdant grasslands. They were growing crops. They had an enormous amount of agriculture going on at that time with these huge lakes up there. Now, I tried to overlay this one, but it was just too busy. You couldn't really see anything inside there. But wherever you see the largest dots on here is where a major river flow through is expected to return to the area. So again, when you're seeing on this where a lake will form again, or we're going to get super heavy precipitation overlaid on the Chinese investment schemes, it's a little bit different than setting up where they know new rivers are going to form in when the rainfall starts. So they know where the drainage basins are going to go based on these historical cycles. Now, everybody's going to posture for this land right here. This is going to become some of the most verdant, productive agricultural croplands on the planet, hands down, in the future. This place is going to green, and they're going to become a new food grow zone. Well, what I saw this morning with David talking about, it looks like the EU is going to try to be in here vying for territory. China's already there. Are you going to scuffle with China to get food grow zones? That's what it looks like. I mean, when I look at it, that's the only possible explanation that they would want to get an integrated army like that. They're going to fight with China for this area here to grow food, because when we look up here in Europe, well, we see losses everywhere. Here's the floods in Somalia. I mean, that's not normal water. That's replenishing the earth, refilling lake kind of water. Does this look strange to you? This is South Africa. Oh, and did I mention the desert southwest of the United States? Anything wrong with that picture? Yeah, that was the end of 2019, and then this 2018 in December, and then this was 2019 in the desert southwest. Record snows, record rain down there. Why does the media not want to talk about these types of things? They keep saying, oh, global warming, it's going to get hotter. Now, I was here, and I was thinking, can I bring something local back to you? Yes, I can. There was the heat wave last year, right? And everything got dried out, and there was a mega drought and everything. Well, they started to see these different Bronze Age cemeteries that, you know, they wouldn't have seen it otherwise unless the huge drought had come. But think about that again. What's it say? Bronze Age. Does anybody remember that first chart? Bronze Age was when? 3,500 years ago. So there's too many cycles matching up with this multi-millennia rainfall patterns and multi-millennia things being sighted again that haven't been seen in so long. And you're right, it's right about this time here. That is a long time ago for so many seemingly unrelated cycles to overlap. And again, we come back to the record snowfalls here in the northern hemisphere this year. Now, this is the baseline average, and 2 standard deviations is within the blue. But we're way outside this. That was last year, 2017-18. And here we are this year, again, blasting across, you know, all-time record snow cover. I think it's 700 gigatons of new snow added on there, snow mass, yeah. 2 years in a row outside the averages so far out makes no sense unless we're getting in more cosmic rays with more clouds and cooler conditions to allow this much snowfall to fall. And here we are. This is my favorite one. Greenland, our poster child for global warming. This is 2015-16, the blue line, and the brown line is the standard that they'd measured everything off of. So when it was 2012 below average, they're like, it's melting, you got to pay global tax. But when we 15-16, you can see it was above the averages. And then 16-17, wow, record gains. And then what, 2017 and 18, record gains again. And then this year, oops, offline. I'm serious. I encourage you to try to find the Danish or their DMI's ice feed to find these charts again. They don't exist. They took them offline. So what you have to do is go through the back door, and they don't have this kind of chart anymore, so you have to go to polar portal, but you can find surface conditions. Now what I mean by that is, I want you to notice this area here. The melt in 2012 and 13 brought us way down here into significant losses. But the melt just last year in 2017-18 never even crossed under that baseline. I thought it was melting into oblivion. Sea levels are going to rise. We're going to have to leave the coast. What would cause the reversal? A grand solar minimum, low solar activity, cooler conditions would cause that. And any astrologists out here in the audience, anybody know astrology? I know there has to be a few. What I want to show you here is planetary geometry from 79 AD. We have the Jovians, or the four gas giants, out here, and we have the Earth right in the center. 79 AD. You see that square configuration. Here's 2024. We have the same square configuration again with the Jovian gas giants. We have the square with the gas giants, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and then the Earth right in the center. It's a nearly identical match between 79 AD and 2024 coming up. I'm saying we're coming back into a 2,000-year cooling cycle at the minimum. A lot of people want to talk about Maunder minimum, and it means, the actual word in Chinese is Wei Ji, and it means they put the two characters together. Opportunity inside the danger. It means you need to find your niche out there. And this is what our global agriculture is going to turn into, and if we don't do anything about it, we already know where the changes are going to come. We know where the output declined in Bohemia, and we can map it out. Here's where the losses were for the vineyards over the last few years, and again, I put this out in 2017, and sure enough, this year, boom, 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 in those same places, based on historical cycles. We're going to lose crop growing area across Canada, parts of North America up in here. These areas are already going offline and will continue to. The areas in Australia for the wheat grow belts, mega drought down here. We're going to lose West Australia. Do you know how much grain that is and how much that's going to drive the food prices up globally? And again, I'll bring you back to China. They're scouring the planet for more food grow areas. All these areas I just showed you are going to go offline in terms of food grow, or be significantly reduced in the amount of crop production we're going to get out of this. Now, I made this chart myself here, and the lines are what they said in history, just historians following Chinese history at the date of the end of this particular emperor's reign. So I just drew the colored lines in there, and it's really interesting how they just fall right at the cusp of the cooling eras. We're in repeating cycles. Now, China's not going to go quietly into the night. They're going to do anything and everything they can to survive this time as the new emperor with Xi bringing on his new powers in China. They're going to do anything they can to try to buck history and be the first emperor that ever survived a grand solar minimum. Now, there are some options here. We can shift grow zones. So every 1 C degree drop, it's going to have to push about 100 miles further south. So if we're predicting something like the Maunder minimum would be 2.5 degrees Celsius drop, which means we have to move all of our growing of food 250 miles south. Well, you know what? A lot of people live there. We could switch crops. We could start growing hemp. This is what I'm doing at my own house. I'm starting vertical grow tubes, and this is on my balcony here, and I'm doing some of my own solutions. You could use gravitational vortex power. It's simply spinning water, and it drops right through here. It's a 1.5 foot drop. You can do a little bit deeper drop, 3-4 feet, to get it more of a spin in there. And there's ways to create power locally that we haven't really talked about too much. This is a new LED. It's an all-spectrum LED light that's come out. So what we're trying to do is bundle this system together with electric motor or electric capability producing using magnets to produce our own power in our own homes, coupled with the efficiency of this new all-in-one LED with vertical grow tubes. And that's kind of my solution that I'm working on, because I envision that we're going to have to bring most of our agriculture indoors. And Ted Marchildon up here at Omega Garden, he's working with the rotary design, and they're actually stacking them now so they move into a shipping container, and as long as you have the right ventilation and water and nutrient mix, you can continue to grow. So a lot of people working on the solutions out here. How are we going to pay for it? Maybe crypto, maybe not. But you see the rise of cryptocurrency occurring right at the rise of this grand solar minimum, so I really believe they're intertwined. And my last thing here is, The Economist magazine originally was just a black cover. They've since changed that. But they have the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. So the black horse is the famine. And where does it center over? It centers over Europe right here. So since it was inverted, like when you try to read it, it's written backwards. So I thought, let me invert it and try to bring it together so you could see it as such. This is one way to look at it, inverted. You can see it looks like a pyramid right in the middle of the marijuana leaf there, and then the pandolins turn into something else. And I thought, all right, well, maybe that's not the correct up there. So I inverted it again, but I brought this into a 0, so it's a perfect inversion. But then this really changes in the center. What was the bulldog for the UK right here, which was this, suddenly turns into some a little bit different. Perhaps you see something here. I see this, down here with the Mary Magdalene and a few other things. The Mary Magdalene, are they trying to tell us it's a 2,000-year cycle coming back again due to the birth of Christ? I mean, there's subliminal messages through here, and if you can decipher them, 4 horses of the apocalypse, famine, the black horse. We got at least a 2,000-year cycle deciphered in this thing. I don't know, up to you. I really have no idea, but we're all part of the solution. The solutions are going to come from everybody this time. Young generation, mid-generation, older people. We all need to start thinking about it because we're all in it together, and that's the reason I do my channel and the reason I bring you this information, because I am here with you. And if everybody here is prepared, we're going to get along way better than if I'm the only guy prepared. We're going to have to help each other. We truly are. And that's the only way forward is to help each other get through this. And I thank you so much. My name is David DuByne. oilseedcrop.org. Would you like that?
Outstanding.
Great. No, thank you.